Welcome back to another episode of What Are You Made Of with your boy, the unstoppable Mike C-Roc. Wait till you hear about today's guest. I'm excited to have him. I met him in Clubhouse a couple weeks ago, and Dr. Finance, my man Ant from Philly, had Ryan Blair as his guest on his Friday Clubhouse room. And I was like, you know what? I gotta have this guy on. And come to find out, his publicist, Jackie, was actually trying to reach out to me somehow. So it's like a divine connection. And I'm so excited the fact that we actually got this lined up. So my guest today is Ryan Blair. He's a number one New York Times bestselling author and serial entrepreneur. He wrote his first book, Nothing to Lose, Everything to Gain, in 2011 and became a number one New York Times bestseller from that book. He is the former CEO of the multi-level marketing company ViSalus Sciences, which he sold in 2012 for a lot of money. Do you want me to announce that or no? Is that a part of the thing?
Whatever you want to say.
792 million, if that's even correct, I don't know, but 792 million is what it says here. After Blair's mother passed away in 2017, he spent 2 years reinventing himself. Altar Calls was founded in 2019, inspired by Blair's spiritual reinvention. Altar Call helps entrepreneurs discover their true life's purpose with a proprietary curriculum. Ryan, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, C-Roc. Appreciate you having me.
Hey, so we had a little setup call before this, and I got to find out like the vibes that you put off, man. And, I was just, I had another guest on right before this, and same thing. Like I could tell this person, the energy that they have inside of them, man, the authenticity that's there. I can even feel when I'm talking to certain people, the things that they went through in the past to get to where they are, that the trauma, the struggle, the emotions. And I noticed that with you as well. So I just wanted to start off by sharing that with you.
Thank you.
And I want to find out the question first before we go too far into this. What are you made of, Ryan?
I'm made of love. Now, how did I get there? It took a while, but at this point in my stage of my journey, I'm made of love.
Love that, man. Very simple, very powerful, though. Yeah. So take us back, man. Take us back to growing up. Where did you grow up? What was it like? What kind of, childhood did you have?
As a child, I got to know the teacher of suffering quite well. My father was a very violent man, addicted to drugs, and my mother was an alcoholic, and she had a lot of traumas that she was suffering from, as did he. And so I had a journey through suffering throughout most of my life until after my mother had passed away, and I made the decision that I was going to, really understand suffering and elevate beyond it. And I can tell you I have now. But, as part of my journey as a young man, I was involved in gangs. I was in and out of juvenile hall. I was a street fighter. I broke my hand 5 times and all my teeth have been knocked out. I've had all kinds of very difficult experiences that I had created so that I could learn, the teacher of suffering, basically. Been involved with drugs, been involved with all kinds of things that, taught me a lot along the way. So I've had a very eventful experience so far. And, now that I've, aged and matured a bit, I've now seen how suffering has played a role in my life, and I've decided to detach from it. But for most of my life, suffering was the key teacher that I was learning from.
Wow. So one thing, I think I spoke to you about this when we spoke, but I want to talk in front of the audience about this. I did a session over at Celebrity Center. And when I went back thinking about when I was 19, 20, when I fell off the tracks, I say, I was a good kid until college. And then I started losing my way, drugs, alcohol, women. I say that they were chasing me. At least I thought then, but I was really chasing them. And that revisiting that with this person that was helping me with my thoughts and my past, it really, I had some shame feeling come into me that I cannot believe that was me. Did you deal with that and go back to that and really understand that and then have that same feeling when you were going through all that?
Yes. Shame has a purpose. It's there to help you extract the lesson, but you need to learn how to remove the shame once you've extracted the lesson. But until you've learned the lesson, you're going to have shame around it. But once you've learned the lesson, you realize that there's a deeper meaning to what you're learning and your reason for being and your purpose on this earth and the journey that we're all on. And so when you really find the deeper meaning in the the things that our soul had to go through in order to learn, then you don't have shame or guilt or grief any longer. But you have to work through each memory, each experience that has happened to you and happened through you and happened for you in order to reconceptualize that, remove the negative energy around it, and be able to step into a higher level of light.
Yeah, man. And what, take us back to when you lost your mother. Like, what made you, I guess, the feelings that you had at first, and then how far after that did you really feel like you need to reinvent yourself and really kind of rediscover yourself?
Yeah, I didn't intentionally reinvent myself. I really had no choice. When my mother passed away, her and I had an interesting relationship. I had so much love for her, and she did for me, but she couldn't really love herself. And so I didn't receive the love that I needed from her. And as a result of that, there was a lot of unexpressed words when she passed away. There's a lot of unreconciled events and emotions. And the way she had passed away was very difficult. She had fallen down a flight of stairs, and she was in a coma for 2 years. And so for 2 years of my life, I went and visited her when she was in a vegetative state. And I would, try to pray to her. I tried to talk to her. And it was very difficult for me to see my mother that way. It was from a brain injury. So, not only was it the fact that she was mentally there, but physically she was impaired as well. Through a lot of prayer, she woke up, and it was a miracle in my life. And I had about another 4 years with her after that, where she was on, in a hospitalized situation, in and out of the ICU. And every single day for a period of about 7 years, I woke up wondering whether or not today was the last day that my mom would be alive. And over 7 years of time, I built up a lot of emotion, a lot of pressure, a lot of unexpressed words and sorrow and grief. And when she passed away, all of that surfaced at once. It was as though her angel was right there with me, and she was like, let's get this stuff out. And I grieved in a way that is indescribable. It was the greatest sorrow that I'd ever experienced in my life. And when you get to a point where you're at rock bottom, and this was a rock bottom event for me, it is the holiest place that you can be. And so from that rock bottom moment, I started getting clarity. I started seeing myself for the very first time and seeing the sins that I had committed, the harm that I had created, the unresolved trauma, the unhealed things that were going on in my life, the relationships that I was surrounded with, the people that I had attracted, the business deals that I'd done. I saw it all at once. It was as though my life was flashing before my eyes. As they say, when you meet the creator, your life flashes before your eyes. I was doing this life review, and I was very sad with who I had become. Now, yes, I was very successful. Yes, I had status in our society. Yes, I had created a lot of good in the world. But the person that I was not the person I was capable of being, and not the person that I wanted to be. So I looked myself in the mirror deeply and basically made a deal with God that I would change anything and everything about me. Now, in addition to my mother passing away, I was going through a custody battle with my son's mother. I was going through some business difficulties. I had lawsuits that I was up against that were to the tune of $1 billion, where, literally, if I lost these lawsuits, I lost my son, I lost my mother. So there was a trifecta of events occurring that put me in a position where I had no choice but to go inward. My entire life, I was trained to go outward and to seek outwardly worth and to seek status and the next payday, the next New York Times bestseller, the next car, the next jet. Those next things were all that I sought in life. And so at that point in time, all of the outwardly things had no value to me, because all of those things would never get me another minute with my mother. And all of those things did not give me the happiness that I knew that I could have and that I did not have by any means. And so as a result of that particular moment, it was like a nuclear explosion went off, and a spark of light was released from me that I've just been nurturing and building and stripping away all of the layers of dark that I had accumulated throughout my journey.
And are you proud of the man you've become at this point right now?
Yeah. I'm a great father. I'm a great friend. I'm a great leader. And I live a life right now. I get emotional just telling it to you, man. I live a life right now that's best described as heaven on earth. I've never dreamed that I could have as much happiness. Even, suffering visits me, it visits us all. It's just that I have now the tools to deal with it and to learn from it. And I receive it with grace. And as a result, it doesn't stay very long with me, unlike, how it used to.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this stuff first before we went back into the other successes that you've had in business and all that, because I think personally, despite the fact that you sold a company for hundreds of millions of dollars, uh, that doesn't compare to being happy and what you've become, man. And I just want to commend you for that. And
Thank you.
I'm so happy that you're in that place, man, because it means the world to me to see people living the life of their dreams. My mission is people are unstoppable to live in the life of their dreams. Yeah. And man, it's phenomenal. So that's why I wanted to start with that. Now let's go back a ways until, like, as you were growing up, gangs, fighting. I fought a lot. I mean, I'd have friends that would get in skirmishes, or somebody would mess with a friend, and I would just go take care of the problem for them. Like I look back, and there was some kind of thing inside of me. I don't know if it was competition or ego or strength. Something felt good about it. But like now looking back, like I would never even want to even think about doing something like that. I would talk my way out of it, run, and not even think twice about, I'm strong and everything. I have muscles, but I don't need to prove anything, So I look back, but when you were coming out of that, okay, and first made your first success in business, what was that first success? Was that company, or?
My first, success in business was a company called Sky Pipeline that I had built from the age of 21 to 24. And I exited it in a $25 million transaction when I was 24 years old. And so that was my first success. I was basically groomed to be an entrepreneur. All the environmental conditions I described earlier had created a risk appetite, unlike most people. So I was willing to take risk. And the moment that I got a decent job, as I did as a young man, I was an engineer working for a very successful engineering firm, doing software engineering and developing products and managing a data center. I realized that my calling was to be an entrepreneur. And so I had success very early. I was very successful at a very young age. And it was because, I was unemployable, and I had, learned entrepreneurship on the streets for the most part. So doing, legal entrepreneurship was much easier than illegal entrepreneurship. So I was just built for entrepreneurship, basically.
And what did you have financial literacy at that age when you sold your first company? When you started making money, did you know what to do with it?
No. I tell people this. I have a lot of students that I mentor, and I always share with them, you need to learn two things: how to make money and how to keep money. I put all of my energy in learning how to make the money because I enjoyed spending it. Like, that was the fun. And it was my constant desire for status, buying the next watch so people would see that I had a $250,000 watch when I walked in the room. All of that was the fuel that I needed to continue making it. And so that was the first phase of my career. And then the second phase of my career, once I have a son and I have some responsibility, and I'm also more mature, and I'm thinking about the later years of my life. When you're a young kid, you don't think about those later years at all. Now I've learned how to retain the money, but prior to that, I just focused on making it and spending it, basically.
And then when did you really realize, though, when you started understanding investing and being able to not just make the money, keep the money, but actually multiply it so that it works for you?
Yeah. I was good at that. I was good at, that's part of making money, but when I would get the gains, I would, buy the next toy, basically.
Okay. Gotcha.
I was good at investing it and good at being involved in a number of different transactions. I've had my hand in, some significant real estate transactions and some significant public company transactions, and as well as I bought and sold companies. Like, I was in the game of making money in a very diverse way, but I wasn't in the game of retaining it. I mean, I've retained a substantial sum of it, but my intention, I didn't care because I could just make it so easily that I didn't really care too much about the retention side of it. Now I care a lot more about retention.
Why do you think it's so hard for some people to figure out the money game, to be able to make the money, not just do the other parts of it, but actually make the money?
They just don't put their energy into it. See, it's a skill. And to me, my very simple mind equated, my sovereignty with the ability to actually generate revenue on the top line. And when I started as a business person, it's very complex. You have to learn things like balance sheets and financials and, and a variety of different financial elements. And it just dawned on me, a mentor told me, if you get the top line right, you'll have the money to figure out the bottom line. And so I just was like, okay, I'm going to put all my energy in the top line, and I'm going to keep putting my energy into there until I build enough of a top line to where I can hire great people to help me figure out the bottom line. And by great people, I mean supply chain people, technologists, customer experience people, all the components that you need to run an effective business, finance people, lawyers, insurance. These are things that you need to buy to make sure that you have a sustainable business that has a high yield to it. And so that's how I scaled my business. When you had mentioned earlier, the company that I'd exited in a $792 million transaction, I did 97 million a year in profit in that business. And the way I did that is I put my energy on the top line and got great people in to help me manage the bottom line.
You said 97 million a year in profit?
Yeah, 635 million in revenue, 97 million a year.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. And so what did you learn in the legal battles that you had? What are some lessons that you can, provide the audience, myself too? I'm listening too.
Yeah. So one, the more successful you get, the more people are going to sue you for no good reason. There's entire law practices that are just looking for successful companies that they can shake down. So that's just part of the process. That's part of it. The mistakes that I made was I would get really emotional. Being sued is one of the greatest fears that we have as human beings in American society. And it's a shame, but it is a fear that we have built into us. And we have to learn as operators to overcome that fear, because there will be people that will sue you. And, oftentimes it's for no good reason. There were times where there were good reason. And, I made some adjustments, and, I've learned humbly as a result of those experiences. There were times where I was just negligent. I didn't know that, I couldn't text 1 million people from my database, right? Next thing you know, I'm being sued for $970 million for texting 1 million people from my database, right? So, I was just negligent. I didn't understand the ramifications that I now have a better understanding of. So a lot of the lawsuits, every lawsuit's taught me something deeply. Some of the lawsuits that I got into, I should have never gotten into. So I've banked those lessons. Some people that I sued, I look back at it and say, why did I waste any time and energy trying to sue somebody when I could have put that time and energy toward much more profitable activity that are much less energy draining? But attorneys are going to advise you to sue, advise you to fight suits, advise you in the direction that is their best interest. And that's the attorney's way. So another lesson is to make sure you have the best attorneys possible. At every stage, I've had great attorneys. And I'll tell you, even though I'm running a relatively small startup now with just about 20 people working for it, I have the best attorneys. Like, I don't spare any expense when it comes to attorneys to make sure that I'm doing things correctly. And I have great minds on the legal side of it to make sure that we have some protection. The other thing I'll share with you that's very critical, that the reason why I don't have any of these lawsuits against me now, knock on wood, and I was able to exit those lawsuits by means of either settlement or dismissal, was because I had great insurance. And so if you really load up correctly on insurance, you can then afford to fund the lawsuits against some formidable adversaries that might also have really good attorneys. But you don't want to have 25 attorneys against you and you can't even afford to hire one of them, right? That's a bad situation to find yourself to be in. Or you can only afford to hire a really inexpensive attorney and they have some of the most talented people in the world that are coming after you. So I've learned the hard way about these lawsuits. I hope I've been able to provide some value in terms of for how entrepreneurs can combat it and think about it, but, get great attorneys and buy great insurance.
Yeah. Yeah. And so going back to the 97 some million in profit per year, what was the key in that business? What are 3 keys, 1 to 3 that really made that business catch fire like that? From the start, when you started it to where it got to. That's obviously amazing. There's not many companies that do that.
Yeah.
What were the keys that you put in?
Well, number one, we were the first to do challenges online, on social media, for example. So this was in 2009 when we launched what we called The Challenge. We acquired the domain challenge.com, and we were a weight loss company. We had our customers share their challenge as part of the process of being, in our customer relationship. And if they shared it with 3 people, we gave them their product for free. And that went viral. And next thing you know, we had 3 million people on our challenge buying our product And as a result of that, did a couple billion in sales and hundreds of millions in profit. So we had a consumer proposition that was at the right time. We leveraged new advancements in technology, new platforms that no one ever had. We beat the other people in the marketing world to this concept of challenges and perfected it and worked on it and stuck with it and simplified it. And our entire culture was around a single challenge called the Body by Vi 90-day challenge that we ran, for years. And this challenge was how we acquired customers and then, and how we basically built the company. So that was that. We also refactored the company. I do have to tell you, I can't take credit for any of this. I had a great team. I had great co-founders, great partners, great investors, great team members to help execute on this. I was primarily in charge of strategy and technology and some of the other, core functions of the business. But I had great team members, that were, very important in the success that I'm describing to you here today. But the other thing that we did is when the recession hit in 2008, we reinvented our company. We reinvented ourselves. We re-engineered everything to meet a new consumer that was conscientious about cost, that wanted to lose weight and look great, didn't want to spend a lot of money doing it. And so we repackaged our products, our messaging, and then our marketing in a way that met the consumer where they were at right on time. While all of our competition was retracting, we were expanding and we took market share from the entire market. In the shake market alone, we took a 27% market share across all shake categories, and we were number one in shake in North America.
Yeah. So what you did was you did something that worked, it went viral, and then you banged on it until it stopped working, right? Yeah, I mean, you created something that you could replicate and do over and over again and keep them coming back, right?
Yeah.
I love that.
There was a lot of things, the reason why it stopped working was because we quit innovating because we sold the company. And so as a result of the fact that we were more interested in our payouts and, our mansions all around the world and our jets and all those other things, we quit innovating in that core category. Now, in retrospect, seeing all of the value and revenue that's been created through online challenges, we could have literally owned that particular category and been the most dominant in the category for quite some time because we were the first to do billions. In fact, the only company that I know of that's done billions in sales through challenge marketing. So we really had something beautiful there. We just stopped innovating on it, and that's why it stopped working.
And do you remember when you were back when you first started? And I know this isn't the case, but sometimes I get this feeling of, man, everything's on me. It's all on my shoulders. And I think sometimes it's artificially created because it makes me feel important subconsciously.
Yeah.
And what I've come to realize, and I found out this weekend at my event I held an event, I did a mastermind, right? And I'm used to speaking, and I'm used to going to events where people speak and they speak into people, right? But when you have a mastermind, a true mastermind, like Napoleon Hill talked about in Think and Grow Rich, where people actually speak into each other after a problem is stated, I started to realize, and I had a cognition at 45 years old. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't have to be the one to speak into people. I can provide an environment and a space that's safe and conducive to people that have the ability to, their experience or whatever the case is, or wisdom to speak into people, and the collection does the job. But do you remember having that feeling? And sometimes you still have it now.
Well, you bear a lot of burden on the way, to success, and a lot of the burden that you bear is not necessary, and some of it is. Responsibility does come with burden. But I think what you're describing in your own experience, that you had an awakening of this weekend, as you mentioned. What you're describing is you now have a healthy relationship with your ego. And when we're young men on the way up, our relationship with our ego is generally not healthy. But once we get a relationship with our ego that's healthy, it's much better for me to present a quality team than for me to try to say that I've done, every transaction in the book here. I'd much rather present to you my team and have you be in awe of the quality of people that I've attracted and how good they are. And I just sit back and orchestrate from behind the scenes rather than having to do so from in front of the room. So I think what you're describing is that, you've just realized that, you had some powerful, wonderful people in the room that you were with. And now you're the catalyst for that connection, and you can just get out of the way and watch it blossom. And that takes a level of maturity to realize that the person doing the less talking in the room, the least amount of talking, tends to be the one that has the most value to offer and the most confidence. And the person doing the most talking in the room tends to be the one that has the most insecurity and oftentimes the greatest ego.
Yeah, I like that, man. And it's actually felt better
Yeah.
than when I went go to an event and speak to the people myself afterwards. I felt so much more fulfilled and powerful, but like this, it was just pretty cool experience. So now I want to talk about your faith as we wrap this up. I want to get into your faith and the fact that you had your son on the spectrum and he's healed.
Yeah.
You told me about this story when we were talking the other day. And first of all, can you speak to your faith and when did you really, commit to your faith?
Well, I was raised in a very religious environment early on in my life, and then that all fell apart. So I had some foundations that were instilled in me at an early age, and I was raised as a Christian. And then I completely abandoned it. I was pretty much an atheist for a period of time because I had gone through so much suffering that I did not understand how God could have put me through that suffering as a young child. And so I resented my faith. I resented God. I resented the whole idea of it, and I rebelled against it. Later on in my life, some miracles occurred, and I realized that maybe there is a hand in my life that I'm not present to. Maybe there are forces at work that I cannot see. And when I look at the pattern of my life, I see a lot of divine interventions that occurred. I just counted them as coincidences or took credit for them myself, as a result of my ego. And when I look at the pattern, I realize that there has been the hand of a master in my life for quite some time. The thing that really triggered me to go deep into my spiritual journey was the deep and tremendous loss that I was dealing with my mother. And when that happened, over a period of years, she was passing away. I became more spiritual and more spiritual, and I would study different wisdoms. You mentioned the Celebrity Center. I've done some studying there. I've studied a number of different wisdoms from, different faiths. I've studied Buddhism, Hinduism, Kabbalah. I've studied a bunch of different things to extract the best lessons from each of them, the best practices from each of them, and to create my own version of faith that I now live by in this day. You could say that I'm a Christian because that's how I was raised, but I've adopted the principles and practices from a number of different faiths, and that's part of the reason why I'm able to operate with the level of light that I'm able to operate with. And so I embrace all faiths. I embrace all people of all spiritual faiths because I believe there's something good in every single one of them. And I choose to see the light as opposed to see opportunities to separate or opportunities to judge. I choose to see the light in the various faiths that I've been exposed to.
Awesome, man. And talk about your son, man.
Yeah. So, you asked that question about Reagan. My boy's name's Reagan. And
Reagan, yeah.
Yeah. When my mother passed away, I was doing these meditations nonstop, doing prayers. I would spend 14 plus hours a day in prayer and meditation, sometimes more. Literally wake up, it'd be dark. By the time I was done meditating, it would be dark. And I'd be like, wow, where did the day go? And I was just going deeper and deeper and peeling back the layers and cleansing and healing myself. And during one of those meditation sessions, my son came in, and it was a very powerful session. I have no doubt my mother was in the room. And I took him through a process. And at the end of the process, I watched his eyes change. Whatever spirit was inside of him had been removed. And I knew right then and there that he was healed from his autism. And he's since gone on to just accelerate everywhere. It was like there was an entity within him that was holding him down, and that was released when I started channeling and bringing in as much love as I possibly could, and then taking him into that process. It was released from him. And so my son's autism is no longer an issue in our family.
How old was he when that happened?
9 years old.
9 years old. And here's the thing. This is true that it can happen a lot more.
Yeah.
But the reason it doesn't is because at some point in our history, people stopped believing.
Yeah.
Or they were told not to believe it and they would be put into prison or killed or something. I don't know exact history, but I know for a fact that people do not believe and they will not see. And if we can have some kind of awakening, some kind of revival, man, how powerful would that be? Because we're watching a war happen right now in Ukraine, and I can't wrap my head around why somebody would even bother being in a war right now. To me, all countries should thrive and survive together, helping each other when they need help. And I just can't wrap my head around it. But I do understand that there is evil that exists. Yeah. So, man, I just, that's so powerful, man. And I believe every part of that. I believe that it can happen more. And I just want to continue to make sure my faith is strong to be able to do that for other people. So Thank you for sharing that. And, look, I could talk to you all day because we align so much. What is the vision for the future for you, man?
I'm going to spend every ounce of my soul trying to help as many people as I can and be able to shift the consciousness of the planet. When you had mentioned earlier, we have a war that literally started today. We have people suffering for no good reason. We have plenty of resources to educate every American, and we're not doing that. We could be, providing the real medicine to people, not the prescription drugs and the things that we think are medicine. And right now, my duty on this planet is to lead the way as best as I can for as many people that will, join me. To make a shift in the consciousness that we have on the planet. And so I'm very passionate about that. I've created an organization called Altar Call. It's literally a call for change. And I'm going to do my very best by any means necessary to provide as much value as I can to this world and help people see the way that I've been so blessed to witness and experience. And so that's the future. I helped 3 million people lose weight and go through a transformation process at ViSalus. And I plan to help much, much more people go through a spiritual transformation process as part of the work that I do at Altar Call.
And Ryan, how can people find out more about Altar Call?
Just go to altarcall.com. It's ALTERCALL.com. Or you can connect with me on Instagram. If you just DM me, I'm at Real Ryan Blair on Instagram.
At Real Ryan Blair, not fake Ryan Blair, because there might be some fake ones out there. I love it, man. I love it. All right, man. Hey, we're going to be doing something together in the future. I'm just gonna put that out there right now because we align so well, and I want to do more than I'm doing now. So
let's do it.
Yeah. So I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to interview you and showing up to my audience. And audience, thank you for being here, guys. Thank you so much for attending and supporting me and my guests. It means the world to me. I wake up every day and I have this opportunity in front of me to be able to spend time with you and impact the planet. And so I want to keep encouraging to come back to this platform here that you're on today, or go to YouTube, watch these on Mike C-Roc Ciorrocco. Keep coming back. And until next time, be unstoppable, baby.